It was supposed to be a quick, overnight stay, just one night at the Budget Inn before continuing my cross-country road trip. I never imagined it would turn into the most terrifying experience of my life. I arrived at the motel late in the evening, exhausted from a long day of driving. The flickering neon sign and rundown exterior should have been my first warning, but I was too tired to care. I just wanted a bed for the night. The check-in process was unremarkable. The bored-looking clerk barely looked up from his phone as he handed me the key to room 237. "Enjoy your stay," he mumbled, his tone suggesting he knew that was unlikely. My room was on the second floor, at the far end of a dimly lit outdoor corridor. As I lugged my suitcase up the metal stairs, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. I glanced around, but the parking lot was empty except for a few scattered cars. The room was about what you'd expect from a budget motel: outdated decor, a faint musty smell, and a bed that had seen better days. But it was clean enough, and the door had a sturdy lock. I told myself I was just being paranoid as I triple-checked that the door was secured. I was too wired to sleep right away, so I decided to take a quick shower to relax. As the warm water washed over me, I started to feel better. Maybe this place wasn't so bad after all. That's when I heard it, a soft scraping sound coming from somewhere above me. I froze, straining my ears. There it was again, a deliberate, slow, dragging noise. My heart began to race. Was someone in the ceiling? I quickly shut off the water and grabbed a towel, wrapping it around myself as I stepped out of the bathroom. The scraping had stopped, but now I could hear soft thuds like footsteps moving across the ceiling. "Hello?" I called out, my voice shaking. "Is someone there?" Silence. I told myself I was being ridiculous. It was probably just the pipes or maybe the guest in the room above me. But a nagging voice in the back of my mind whispered that something wasn't right. I got dressed quickly, my eyes darting to the ceiling every few seconds. Just as I was about to convince myself it was nothing, I saw it. A small circle of the popcorn ceiling slowly began to bulge downward. My blood ran cold as I realized someone, or something, was pushing down from above. I watched in horror as the circle grew larger, small cracks spreading outward like a spider web. I grabbed my phone, my hands shaking so badly I could barely dial 911. As I raised the phone to my ear, a piece of the ceiling crashed to the floor. And then I saw them. Fingers. Human fingers, dirty and calloused, reaching down through the hole. I screamed and bolted for the door, fumbling with the lock as I heard more of the ceiling collapsing behind me. Just as I wrenched the door open, a hand grabbed my ankle. I kicked wildly, connecting with something solid. There was a grunt of pain, and the grip loosened just enough for me to break free. I ran down the corridor, screaming for help. Other doors began to open, confused guests peering out. But I didn't stop. I raced down the stairs across the parking lot and didn't look back until I reached the motel office. The clerk looked up in alarm as I burst through the door, breathless and hysterical. "There's someone in the ceiling," I gasped. "Call the police." What happened next is a blur. Police arrived, the motel was searched, and a horrifying truth was uncovered. A man had been living in the crawl space above the rooms, spying on guests through small holes he'd drilled in the ceilings. He'd been there for months, undetected. They found his makeshift living space in the attic, a sleeping bag, food wrappers, and disturbingly, a collection of items he'd stolen from guests. Including, I later learned, several items from my own suitcase. The police told me I was lucky. The man had a history of stalking and assault. Who knows what might have happened if I hadn't discovered him when I did. It's been years since that night at the Budget Inn, but the terror still feels fresh. I can't stay in motels anymore. The thought of what might be lurking above me is too much to bear. And sometimes, when it's quiet, I swear I can still hear that scraping sound, reminding me of the night I came face to face with the monster in the ceiling. When I checked into the hotel, I didn't expect much. Just a quiet night in an old, charming building. The clerk at the front desk, a wiry man with tired eyes, handed me a tarnished key and casually mentioned that the place was known for its quirks. I brushed it off as a playful nod to the hotel's age, thinking nothing of it. After all, it was just one night. The room was small but cozy, with antique furniture and faded wallpaper that hinted at decades of stories. A slight chill lingered in the air, despite the heater humming softly. I thought it added character, a bit of charm to the experience. But there was something else, a faint unease I couldn't shake. As I settled into bed, the weight of my exhaustion quickly pulled me towards sleep. Yet even in that drowsy haze, I felt a strange sense of anticipation, like I was being watched. I tried to brush it off. "It's just your imagination," I whispered to myself. Sometime in the dead of night, I woke with a start. My chest was heavy, as though someone, or something, was pressing down on me. My breath caught in my throat, and panic spread like wildfire through my body. I couldn't move, couldn't scream, couldn't even turn my head. The room felt darker than it should have been, the shadows thicker, almost alive. My heart thundered in my chest as I strained to see what was happening. That's when I saw it. A pair of glowing yellow eyes staring down at me, unblinking, filled with an intelligence that felt wrong. I could make out the shape of a large black cat perched on my chest, its fur glossy and darker than the shadows around it. It didn't move, didn't make a sound. It just stared, and its gaze seemed to bore into my very soul. I wanted to shove it off, to scream, to run, but my body refused to cooperate. The air felt suffocating, as though the cat's presence had drained the oxygen from the room. A low, guttural growl broke the silence, and I swear it came from the cat, though its mouth didn't move. Seconds stretched into an eternity as I lay there, paralyzed and helpless. My mind raced with every horror story I'd ever heard, every urban legend about haunted places and ghostly apparitions. Was this it? Was I about to become part of someone else's cautionary tale? Then, without warning, the oppressive weight lifted. The cat leapt off my chest with an eerie grace, landing silently on the floor. I bolted upright, gasping for air, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. The cat stood at the foot of the bed, its yellow eyes still fixed on me. For a moment I thought it might pounce again, but then it turned and walked toward the corner of the room. I watched in stunned silence as it disappeared, not behind furniture or through a door, but into the wall itself. The room was quiet again, but the air still felt heavy, charged with an energy I couldn't explain. I sat there for hours, too afraid to move. The image of those glowing eyes burned into my mind. When morning finally came, I rushed to the front desk, desperate for answers. The clerk gave me a knowing look before I could even explain. "The black cat," he said softly, as if the words themselves carried a weight. Apparently, I wasn't the first guest to encounter it. Some said it was the spirit of a cat that had belonged to the hotel's original owner, while others believed it was something far darker. Whatever it was, no one seemed to have a definitive answer. I checked out as quickly as I could, the clerk's words echoing in my mind. "It doesn't hurt anyone," he had said, almost dismissively. But that wasn't comforting. Not after what I had experienced. Even now, months later, I can't shake the memory of those eyes or the crushing weight on my chest. I try to tell myself it was just a nightmare, sleep paralysis maybe, but deep down, I know the truth. Something was there that night, something I can't explain, and no matter how hard I try, I'll never forget the feeling of being watched by those glowing yellow eyes.